The world of high finance moves at the speed of light. But for 8,000 individuals in February of 2024, time came to a complete and crushing halt in just 8 seconds. That was the window of time it took for the latest earnings report from Meta to flash across the screens of every major news outlet and trading floor on the planet. The numbers were not just good, they were historic. The company, led by Mark Zuckerberg, announced a staggering net profit of $26.8 billion for a single quarter. It was a mountain of wealth so immense that it defied traditional comprehension. For the investors on Wall Street, it was a moment of pure, unadulterated triumph. Stock prices surged, and the air in the financial districts was thick with the smell of success and the promise of even greater dividends. However, as the digital ink was still drying on those glowing green financial charts, a different kind of notification was hitting the inboxes of thousands of dedicated professionals. While the charts moved upward in a beautiful, jagged line of prosperity, the lives of 8,000 employees were being systematically dismantled. These were not just names on a spreadsheet. They were high-level engineers, project managers, and creative minds who had spent years, often sacrificing their personal lives and mental health, to build the very platforms that had just generated that $26 billion windfall. In an instant, the visual contradiction was total and terrifying. On one screen, you saw the absolute peak of corporate performance, a record-breaking achievement that signaled Meta was more powerful than ever. On the other screen, thousands of workers watched as their corporate Slack accounts turned grey and their keycards suddenly refused to grant them access to the buildings they had called home. The silence of this mass termination was perhaps the most chilling part. There were no grand farewells and no personal explanations from management. There was only the cold, binary reality of a deactivated account. This introduces a core paradox that has left the entire tech industry in a state of deep unease. Why would a company, at its absolute financial zenith, flush with more cash than many small nations, execute a mass purge of its elite workforce? Usually, layoffs are a sign of desperation, a last-ditch effort to save a sinking ship. But Meta was not sinking. It was soaring. This was not a move born of necessity, but one of calculated strategy. To understand this, we have to look at the situation through the lens of a premium business thriller. This was not a routine financial event or a simple clerical error in human resources. This was a deliberate and calculated corporate realignment. In the boardrooms of Silicon Valley, the narrative had shifted. The earnings call was not just about reporting past success. It was about signaling a new and ruthless direction. From a journalistic perspective, the story is not about what was lost, but about what is being built in the ruins of those 8,000 careers. We are witnessing the breakdown of the traditional social contract between a company and its people. For decades, the unspoken agreement was that if you help the company reach record profits, your position within that company would be secure. Meta has officially torn that contract into pieces and scattered it to the wind. When we connect those astronomical numbers to human flesh, the weight of the situation becomes heavy and difficult to ignore. $26.8 billion in pure profit is an abstraction, a number so large it feels like a fantasy. But 8,000 families facing sudden economic displacement is a very real, very physical crisis. These are people with mortgages, children in school, and plans for a future that was anchored to their roles at Meta. They were the ones who stayed late to fix bugs, who ideated the features that kept billions of users scrolling, and who believed they were part of a mission to connect the world. Now, they find themselves on the outside looking in, wondering how their excellence became their liability. The scale of the displacement is massive, occurring in the middle of a broader tech industry crisis where finding a new role is no longer a guaranteed certainty. The fear is palpable in the coffee shops of Palo Alto and the digital forums where these former employees gather to share their shock. They are looking for a reason, a logical explanation for why their hard work resulted in a pink slip instead of a promotion. The answer, however, is not found in their performance reviews. It is found in the way the company now views the very concept of labor. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. It is vital to understand that this purge was not a desperate survival tactic to keep the company from going under. It was something far more clinical. The 8,000 employees were not fired because they failed. They were fired to fund the birth of an entirely new digital god. This was a deliberate sacrifice of human capital to provide the massive amounts of liquidity needed for a transition that will change the face of technology forever. The question that remains, and the one that is currently sending shivers through every corporate office in the world, is simple but haunting. Where exactly is that stolen capital going, and what kind of future is being bought with the livelihoods of 8,000 people? The answer lies in a massive investment that dwarfs the cost of a human workforce, leading us into a world where the machine is no longer a tool, but a replacement. The answer to where that capital is flowing is found in a figure so massive it dwarfs the annual budget of entire nations. Meta is not just investing in the future, they are attempting to buy it. $145 billion. That is the capital expenditure Mark Zuckerberg has committed to the expansion of artificial intelligence infrastructure. To put that into perspective, that is more than 5 times the record-breaking profit they just reported for the quarter. This is no longer just a social media company. It is becoming a massive engine for artificial intelligence, and the fuel for that engine is the discarded careers of the people who built it. This marks the beginning of an unforgiving conflict in Silicon Valley. It is no longer about which company has the most talented team of engineers. It is about which company can amass the greatest amount of raw compute power in the shortest amount of time. The narrative has shifted from human capital to infrastructure capital. In the past, the value of a tech company was measured by the brilliance of its staff. Today, it is measured by the number of high-end chips humming in a climate-controlled data center. Mark Zuckerberg provided the definitive thesis for this new era during a recent meeting with investors. He did not hide behind corporate buzzwords or offer hollow apologies. He said it directly, with a coldness that sent shockwaves through the labor market. He stated that the company had made a fundamental choice. They chose compute over people. This was not a slip of the tongue. It was a declaration of war against the traditional idea of a workforce. It signaled that the human element of the company had become an obstacle to the machine-driven future he envisions. For the 8,000 employees who were let go, this declaration felt like the ultimate betrayal. These were the people who spent their nights and weekends fine-tuning the algorithms, ensuring the platform remained the most dominant force in the digital world. They believed they were indispensable. They were told they were the family that made Meta possible. To hear their leader admit that they were traded like unwanted commodities for better hardware was a devastating blow. The emotional decline among the staff who remained was just as sharp. A heavy cloud of anxiety now hangs over the desks in Menlo Park. Every worker is looking at the sleek black rectangles of the NVIDIA H100 chips and realizing those machines are their direct competitors. They are no longer building tools to help them work. They are building the tools that will replace them. The math behind this substitution is terrifyingly simple. A single NVIDIA H100 graphics processing unit can cost $30,000 to $40,000. While that sounds expensive, a high-level engineer at Meta can easily cost the company $500,000 a year when you factor in salary, bonuses, health insurance, and stock options. A machine does not require a vacation. It does not demand a work-from-home policy. It does not form a union or suffer from mental health struggles. Once purchased, the compounding efficiency of these thousands of units far outweighs the long-term cost of a human being. The corporate board sees a human as a liability that depreciates over time, while they see the AI infrastructure as an asset that grows in power with every passing second. This is the new financial reality of Silicon Valley. We have reached a point where the value of a person's labor is being weighed against the price of electricity and silicon, and for the first time in history, the machines are winning the auction. This realization forces us to stop and reflect on the very nature of our worth in a modern economy. If the most elite engineers in the world can be replaced by a massive purchase order for chips, what does that mean for the rest of us? Take a moment to think about your own role and your own company. Are you being valued for your creativity and your humanity? Or are you just a placeholder until the cost of the compute power required to replace you drops low enough to justify your termination? We will take a brief pause here. If you are finding this deep dive into the automated economy valuable, please give this video a like and share it with someone who needs to hear this reality. It helps us keep bringing you these deep dive investigative stories and independent journalism. Now, we must look at the bigger picture beyond the walls of Meta. Is this cold, algorithmic strategy unique to this one company? Is Mark Zuckerberg just a particularly ruthless leader? Or is he simply the first one brave enough to say the quiet part out loud? What we are witnessing is an analytical acceleration. The success of Meta's stock price following these mass layoffs has sent a clear and dangerous signal to every other chief executive officer on the planet. They are watching the charts move up as the human headcount moves down. They are seeing that Wall Street does not punish companies for replacing people with machines. In fact, it rewards them with higher valuations and investor confidence. This suggests a hidden, systemic shift across the global economy. The era of the human-centric corporation is dying, replaced by a model that prioritizes the machine at any cost. The question is no longer if your industry will face this choice, but when. As we look toward the future, we have to ask if this is the start of a total decoupling of profit from people, and if there is any place left for us in the machine we helped build. The strategy used by Zuckerberg is becoming a blueprint, a master plan that is being discussed in every boardroom from London to Tokyo. The machines are being moved into place, and the chairs are being pulled out from under the workers who once sat there. The next phase of this transition will not just be about one company, but about the end of the traditional career as we know it. The blueprint is no longer a secret confined to the glass walls of Menlo Park. It has become the definitive manual for the modern boardroom. What Mark Zuckerberg demonstrated in February of 2024 was a proof of concept that shook the global economy to its core. By reporting $26.8 billion in net profit while simultaneously firing 8,000 people, he proved that a corporation can achieve its greatest financial peak by actively shrinking its human footprint. This is the chilling macroeconomic climax of our story. We are witnessing the definitive decoupling of corporate success from human employment. For nearly a century, the health of a company was measured by how many people it employed and how much it contributed to the stability of the workforce. Today, the stock market rewards the exact opposite. Wall Street investors do not look at a mass layoff as a sign of failure or distress. Instead, they see it as a liberation from the burden of human costs, a necessary pruning to allow the silicon to grow. The math behind this strategy is cold and calculated. When a human workforce is erased from the balance sheet, the profit margins expand in ways that were previously thought impossible. Every salary, every health insurance premium, and every square foot of office space saved is a direct injection of capital into the machine. This is why stock prices are hitting all-time highs, even as the tech labor market feels more fragile than ever. The investors are not betting on the creativity of people anymore. They are betting on infrastructure. They are betting on the 14-channel cooling systems and the endless racks of NVIDIA H100 graphics processing units. The message from the market is loud and clear. Humans are a drag on the efficiency of the algorithm. To maximize the value of the company, the human element must be minimized until it is virtually non-existent. There is a persistent and comfortable illusion that artificial intelligence is merely a tool designed to make our jobs easier. We are told that these machines will handle the mundane tasks, leaving us free to focus on higher-level strategy. But the radical restructuring at Meta reveals a much darker truth. Artificial intelligence is not being deployed as a tool. It is being deployed as a wholesale structural replacement for human labor. In the eyes of the corporate machine, even a high-level engineer is no longer seen as a creative visionary. They are viewed as a set of expensive training data that has finally served its purpose. Once the AI has learned the patterns, once the code has been ingested and the logic mapped, the human teacher becomes redundant. The student, built of silicon and electricity, is ready to take over the classroom. The physical landscape of Silicon Valley is already reflecting this transition. The bustling office buildings that were once the vibrant heart of the tech revolution are undergoing a ghostly transformation. The open-plan workspaces, the gourmet cafeterias, and the brightly colored collaboration zones are being gutted. In their place, we see the rise of hyper-cooled, roaring data centers. These are the new cathedrals of commerce. They require no natural light and no air conditioning set to a comfortable human temperature. They only require immense amounts of power and a constant stream of liquid coolant to keep the thousands of chips from melting under the pressure of their own calculations. These buildings do not sleep. They do not have opinions. They do not require a salary or a sense of purpose. They are the new face of the global workforce, and they never ask for a day off. This shift represents the total collapse of the traditional social contract between employer and worker. For decades, the unspoken agreement was simple. If you worked hard, if you sacrificed your personal time, and if you helped the company grow, you would have a place within its future. That contract has been torn up and tossed into the cooling fans of a server rack. The realization for the 8,000 families affected by the Meta layoffs is that loyalty is a one-way street in the age of the machine. The company did not fail them. It succeeded precisely because of them, and then used that success to fund the very technology that made them obsolete. This is the icy reality of the modern corporate machine. It is a system designed to extract maximum value from human effort until that effort can be automated, at which point the human is discarded like a spent fuel rod. The emotional reflection this leaves us with is a quiet, heavy sense of vulnerability. We are living through a period where our value as individuals is being weighed against the price of kilowatt hours and the efficiency of a chip. When Mark Zuckerberg said they chose compute over people, he was not just talking about a budget realignment. He was announcing the end of an era. He was telling the world that the human story of the corporation has reached its final chapter. From here on out, the story will be written in binary. The machines will build the platforms. The machines will serve the advertisements. And the machines will manage the profits. The humans who remain will be the few whose roles are not yet cost-effective to automate, living on borrowed time until the next generation of hardware arrives. It is a landscape of empty desks and humming wires, where the sound of human laughter has been replaced by the steady, unceasing drone of cooling fans. This is the automated economy in its purest form. It is a world where a company can be worth trillions of dollars while employing almost no one. As we look at the gleaming charts and the soaring stock prices, we have to ask ourselves what kind of world we are building. If the goal of the global economy is to remove the humans from the equation, then what is the economy actually for? We are reaching the end of a long road, and the destination looks less like a utopia of leisure and more like a fortress of silicon, where the gates have been locked against the very people who built it. What Zuckerberg said out loud is what every chief executive officer is thinking. Subscribe to watch how the automated economy is reshaping your industry before your board makes the exact same choice.